are they amending? I challenge them, and I challenge the National Assembly, and they must answer this question. When you are amending, you first of all start from the preamble. Didn't meet, and they put it there. But I challenge them, or by the Abdul Salam military government. They say, we the people, you must first amend it. If they're going to amend it, what should they say? I don't know. If they can't amend it, if they cannot amend, then let us have a constitution for ourselves.
Dare to tell this nation today that this is the problem. This constitution can never give us progress. This constitution can never give us peace. This constitution can never give us unity. And unfortunately, most of us in this National Assembly, we don't have the spine to face what we need to give this republic to have peace and progress. What do I mean? This constitution has 68 items, 68 on the exclusive list. This constitution has only 12 on the concurrent list. And those 12 are written so nebulously, so fraudulently, that we know that the intention is to even undermine those concurrent lists. The formal name of this republic is Federal Republic of Nigeria. Unfortunately, we don't run a federalist system in Nigeria. Otherwise, what is so unique about all those things that are in the exclusive list in this chamber? We try to federalize the police system in this chamber. We think every crime is local, and the solution to every crime is local. The earlier that senators in Nigeria summon the courage to say, we should not continue to deceive ourselves.
49 people selected to write the constitution, wrote the constitution. 40 people in the Supreme Military Council promulgated the constitution. Under General Abubakar, government in which I served, I was in executive council. I never saw the draft constitution. And I was Minister of Information. It was my responsibility to publicize it to the country. On the day of voting in Obasanjo, we didn't have a copy of the constitution. I didn't know who was printing it. And my ministry was supposed to pay for the printing. And Obasanjo was sworn on a constitution that had not been read by anybody. And the National Assembly could not be constituted until 4 days after his swearing in, because there was no copy of the constitution. You cannot build a quicksand. And they cannot even enforce it.
That the constitution that we have at present is a fraud. It is a fraud because it starts with we the people, when in fact you and I did not sit anywhere to design this constitution. By that fact alone, it is based on a lie and it is based on a fraud. In the past, people could ignore that, because Olusegun Obasanjo was a fair-minded man, and he was a victim. Because Umaru Yar'Adua of blessed memory was a fair-minded man and a patriot. Because Goodluck Ebele Jonathan was a fair-minded man and he was a victim. So people could afford to live with a fraudulent constitution. But now today we are seeing that the fraudulent constitution of people who have hidden agendas, who hate our country, who are beholden to Niger, Mali, Chad, and other foreign countries. They have nothing to offer us. Therefore, on that basis, we must reject the evil that we are seeing, and we must demand for re-engineering of our federation.
So what are our shared core values? If you ask the Americans,
They talk of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We don't have one. And it is when we begin to identify our shared core values that we begin to build a nation. What we have right now is a state held together at gunpoint. And when the state begins to oppress the citizen, there'll be cries of marginalization, there'll be secessionist and separatist agitation, there'll be insecurity. Now we have set up Nigeria to be a place where the state is more powerful than the citizen, and the state is oppressive. We need to retrace our steps. Quite often, Nigerians ask, which is the way forward? And I say, if you're moving in the wrong direction, you shouldn't be going forward. You should make a U-turn.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Secretariat. God bless you. Now, brethren, with that brief introduction, we invite our Brother Tony Nadi to take the floor and continue from where he stopped during the prayer conference. Over to you, sir, Mr. Nadi.
Yeah, thank you, sir, and welcome everybody once more to the prayer conference and this town hall to continue where we stopped the last time. The voices you heard, a short while ago are the voices of people you know, who are not necessarily of Ninas. They are independent voices, as you can see, beginning with the Professor Yusuf Turaki, the chairman of the body that brings together all the associations, ethnic associations across the Middle Belt. He is a co-convener of NINAS. And that was in 2021 when we were addressing a global audience about the constitutional force majeure and where we've gotten with it so far at the time. You saw Nyangodo, who was minister in charge of what should have been done to bring out the constitution in the Absalom Abaka government period. And you heard him saying that he didn't know how they did it. I can report to us that it was Professor Awalu Yadudu that presided over that criminality of going to print the constitution of a country in the private media, in the private press of Ibrahim Babangida called Heritage Press. And so we went from there to, we saw Dr. Obadiah Melafia, we saw the Senator Adeyeye on the floor of the conference, and all of that. Then we listened to Professor Anthony Akinwale, the former Vice Chancellor of Dominican University, the Catholic University in Ibadan, saying that if you are on a wrong road, what to do is not to move forward, is to make a U-turn. It is that U-turn that Nigeria has to make, that NINAS has placed a mechanism on the table by way of the constitutional force majeure of December 16th, 2020, with a 5-point proposition for how exactly it has to be done, step by step from where we are now. We had advised against going to further national elections under that constitution. And we said so in 2015, ahead of 2015. Those who were telling didn't listen. Then Buhari happened. Our borders were torn open and all kinds of things, the Fulani poured in, killing people to take their land. We continued to shout ahead of 2019. The politicians would not listen. They thought they would defeat Buhari and take over, and then everything would become good. It didn't happen. So Buhari continued in 2019, and we saw how much entrenched the Fulani became under that constitution that empowered them. And so we proceeded to, from that 19, we went to the international circuit to tell those who are fighting with ISIS what was happening in our space in terms of the Buhari, the Fulani man, leading his people from across the sub-region of West Africa, across the Sahel, into Nigeria as commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Nigeria that is supposed to be watching over my back. Muhammad Buhari was the one organizing, being a patron of Mieti Allah, that was responsible for, that was proudly taking responsibility for what the Fulani herdsmen were doing, killing and maiming all over the place. The same Muhammad Buhari was the patron of Boko Haram that nominated him to come to represent them in Saudi Arabia when Jonathan was being pressured out of office. And when you put it all together, you saw when Muhammad Buhari took 100 billion naira from the treasury and handed over to Mieti Allah for whatever they were going to do in their cattle business. So it was my president and commander-in-chief that was organizing the invasion of the Nigerian space, throwing the borders of Nigeria open for Fulani to come in whatever numbers, killing and maiming with nobody arresting any one of them. And it was the entire country that they were invading, from the north to the Atlantic waterfront, all the way to end of Port Harcourt and end of Lagos towards Badagry. And so where we had to touch on that is that the nature of the problem we have to resolve now is a Nigeria that is not our project, a Nigeria that was the project of the British and their Fulani, joint venture partner that had managed to impose constitutional arrangements, unitary constitutional arrangements that have rendered us slaves in our homeland. And we have enjoyed this sufficiently. From 1914 to this time, this union had never been our union. When I say our, I mean the project of the indigenous nationalities whose lands and peoples are conscripted into the union. Now, coming down to where we stopped the last time, by way of a recap, we have all now come to realize, and I particularly adopt the presentation of Pastor Wemimo the first day of the prayer conference. We have all realized that the Nigeria we have was a British business, offshore criminal business venture in which they only aggregated. I want us to listen carefully so that we can understand the solution that we must apply now, or we get ready to sink deeper into their conquest designs. When the British, when the Royal Niger Company, with their charter that was given by the British Crown, got here, they managed to get, treaties from the kings of the kingdoms of the time, trading treaties. From those trading treaties, they now say, oh, protection. So that they got those kings to sign what they thought was something that would protect them from other invaders. And then they did not know that it was their sovereignty that they were signing off. And they did sign off. So when in 1914, after the British Crown took over the areas and the territories covered by those treaties of protection, the British Crown paid Royal Niger Company £865,000 to take over the territories and form a government, form a country, because Berlin Conference had happened in 1885, and this territory we call Nigeria now was ceded to the British. And so they came in and began to work out what would become the control of it. So they had to create a country out of that space. Before then, it was just kingdoms and empires that we know. The Oyo Empire was there, then it became a protectorate of southern Nigeria when they had merged it with the Oil Rivers Protectorate, Lagos colony that came in 1850. So they merely took those treaties. The British Crown took together those treaties, merged it with the one they got from the Caliphate that had come by way of jihad in 1804. So it became the parchment of land that Awolowo described as mere geographical expression. The territory running from Sokoto to Maiduguri, down to Calabar and Port Harcourt, Lagos and back to Sokoto. That is the description of all the lands covered by those treaties. And so what they did in 1914, like we showed at the last meeting, was to merge them, just paper, without reference to the owners of the sovereignties. So they swindled the indigenous nationalities of Nigeria of their sovereignty. The only people they talked to was the caliphate that was also on an invasion on their own. They even got here before the British. They came in 1804. The British came in the 1850s and all of that in terms of signing those treaties and deceiving the kings of the time to sign off their lands and their sovereignty. And so, having merged it in 1914, they carried on in 1922, in 1946, in 1954. You know, the constitutions you hear of the time, on no occasion did they go back to the owners of the land, the Yoruba in Yoruba land, the Ijo in Ijo land, and all the other territories across the length and breadth of Nigeria. It was always the British Crown and their Fulani joint venture partners. At the point of independence, they handed over to their local agent, who then, you know, began immediately to implement what we showed you the last time, to convert that entire territory, because that was what they were promised at the beginning in 1913, when Harcourt described the amalgamation that was going to happen on the 1st of January, you know, as the betrothal of the southern lady of Minsk to the well-behaved North. Why is the North well-behaved? The North is another, you know, just another invader, like two criminal gangs that are cooperating over one target. And so it was convenient for them to work out what they will be doing between themselves to control and own this territory we call Nigeria. Up to this date, that joint venture is still prevailing. Some of the people that talk about going back to 1963 Constitution, it was the 1963 Constitution again was done by the Parliament of the time, not the people. They kept evading the people. They are still evading the owners of the sovereignty to date. And that is what Ninas has, you know, worked across the last 25 years to terminate and reverse, such that because the constitution they have on the table now claims falsely that we were the ones who, we the people, were the ones who made out the constitution, who agreed amongst ourselves and made out the constitution. To that extent, all of that evasion of the people, the narrative that it was the ethnic nationalities that mandated the parliament to pass the 1963 constitution, Republican Constitution, is entirely untrue. It was the same group of people who had the political actors that the British had trained that were doing all of that. Now, all of us agree on these factual issues. We saw how Awolowo ended up in prison after the election of independence in 1959 because they were trying to make sure that the baton was in the hand of Ahmadu Bello. And we saw how he used it until the soldiers came in 1966 to stop him. From that point on, Murtala Mohammed that toppled that Federation of Nigeria in 1966, July 1966, turned up in 1975 to topple Gowon and take charge. In taking charge, he was the one that commissioned on behalf of that caliphate and their British sponsors. It was Murtala Mohammed, going by the instruction, the battle script of Ahmadu Bello in 1960, October 1960, that declared that the entire territory must be an estate of their great-grandfather, Usman Dan Fodio. We saw the video clip of where Murtala Mohammed was commissioning the Ben Nwabeze and Rotimi Williams committee that drafted what went before the Constituent Assembly of 1977, where he clearly, Murtala Mohammed now clearly, recalled that the British governed by unitary constitutional arrangement and that Nigeria, towards independence, adopted federal constitutional arrangement. And therefore, now that the thing collapsed in 1966, that they were going back to unitary arrangement, which was what informed the draft that Ben Nwabeze, at the invitation of Rotimi Williams, gave to them, that went to the Constituent Assembly of 1977, which Obasanjo was now presiding over because Murtala Mohammed had been taken out in 1976. We are tracing this to let us know that up to that point, the nationalities, the owners of Nigeria, were never invited to discuss whether they will be in union and the terms of that union. That is the problem that has been, tormenting Nigeria to this day, because only those, those marauders from London and from the Caliphate side and the willing tools from the south and middle belt of Nigeria, those who are being conquered, but who choose to take the little carrot they give to them, either to be president for a while, or be governor for a moment, or be senator for some time, under a constitution that was an apartheid constitution. And they swear to defend and uphold that constitution. And so what do we do now? If we walk out of, by the time we come to the end of this presentation, I want us to live here completely clear in our minds that what we need to do to rescue ourselves from this bondage, these killings happening everywhere, this corruption that is being celebrated, which are all flowing from that constitution, that what we need to do is to assert our right to self-determination, to recover our sovereignty that is confiscated by that constitution of 99, in our capacity as the owners of the land, that is the peoples of Nigeria, meaning that if we can't agree to form a union, then everybody will take charge of their space. Yoruba will be a country of 60 million people, for goodness sake. Are you suggesting that Yoruba can no longer organize their lives? Looking at where Awolowo got them to before Nigeria disrupted them. Are you suggesting that the eastern side, looking at where Okpara got them to, what was it that changed? That Nigeria, that was the example of to the rest of the developing countries of the world, Awolowo was doing excellent in the west, Okpara was doing excellent in the east, infrastructure was being built, people were going to school, there were healthcare, there was healthcare for everybody, and electricity was stable for the towns that were connected. It was the truncation of the federal constitutional arrangements that allowed the regions ownership and control of their assets in July of 1966 that now got further truncated on the 27th of May in 1967 by Lieutenant Colonel Yakubu Gowon, fracturing the 4 regions of the time into 12 states, and the assets of those of the regions now taken over by this illicit federal government, because the federal government is supposed to be the union office for the federating regions. That was what was agreed. You owned your assets, you worked your assets, you contributed only 15% of what you got to the federal government, to the central government, and that even that 15% was for the purpose of the limited number of responsibilities that were delegated by the regions to their union office they call the federal government. Now, let's get into it. What is a constitution? Secretariat, pull up these images so that we can understand what a constitution is, what a federation is, and how the constitutions of a federation are made. What you see here on the brownish one, we're making a comparison between a company and a country. That's our country, the Federation of Nigeria, that is supposed to be. The company is owned by what the constitution is to the country is what the memo and article is to the company in terms of being brought into being by who? That is, who is it that makes the memo and articles of a company? Go to the next image. Next image. It is the owners of a company. You see the 3 layers of authority line. The body of shareholders, Johnson, Jude, Adeleke, and Boma, come together. They are the ones who are coming to form that company. So you see, at the topmost of that authority line is the body of shareholders being the owners of XYZ Limited. Let's call that company XYZ Limited. Only them in the second layer make their memo an article. That is, they decide in a meeting to say, we're going to form this company. We're going to go into agriculture or farming or whatever, or banking. Then they reduce all of what they have agreed to do into the document that is called Memorandum and Articles of Association. That memorandum is the part in which they are committing themselves to becoming a company. Article is the one in which they are talking about how they relate among themselves, who joins them, who leaves, who takes what, when there's debt, when there's profit, how do they share. Then it is after they have made that memo an article that they now hire a management team to run their company. Therefore, they can go back to whatever they were doing for themselves, and their company becomes an entity to be managed by that team they hire, the management team. Then you begin to see managing director, general manager, and all kinds of people in that management team, in that order. So the owners of the enterprise are the shareholders. The document that by which they create and define all of what will happen in that enterprise is the memo and article. And the management they hired will only have to go and do their bidding according to that memo and article. They are not the ones to touch anything in that memo and article. And then you come to the next image, comparing this company, ownership and management, hierarchy with a country. The next image, please. In the case of a country, I want us to pay attention. This is the key to our salvation. This is the key to getting rid of this invasion in terms of now, not dependent on anybody at all. In the case of a federation, the owners of the enterprise are the constituent peoples of the federation. So when you say we the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, those are the people that could be countries of their own. It is only in that sense. Apart from that, is if Nigeria was not occupying their space, the Yoruba will be on their own. The Igbo and the Ijo will be on their own. The Tiv could be on their own. And so you see, no. Yes, the constituent peoples of Nigeria are the shareholders and the owners of the enterprise Nigeria, who have exclusive jurisdiction. I repeat the word, exclusive jurisdiction to make their memo and articles, which in the case of a country and a federation is called constitution, by which they federate. And it is in that constitution that they settle the question of, yes, we want to be a union. Yes, we have to be a union of 5 units, of federating units. We have to be in 2 tiers or 3 tiers or 10 tiers. We have to, we define what the union office will be doing for us and what we do for ourselves. It is in that writing of the memo and articles, which is constitution, for that federation, that you now have a document that can bind the people into a union. And then in the 3rd layer, in terms of the management of that enterprise, that is where you see the government in its 3 arms: executive, legislative, and judiciary. And so at the peak of the authority line is the people. That's the peoples of Nigeria who are bringing their lands and their people to form an entity to be called the Federation of Nigeria. They reduce it into writing, that agreement to unionize, to federate. That's where the constitution comes in. Only them can write it, no other person. It is not the management you hire that come to write your memo and article. What has happened to Nigeria since 1966 is that the management we hire, the government of the time, toppled the constitution, removed our own names from it, put their own names, and have been managing they seized control of our sovereignty and our assets since that time to this date. That is what happened to us. And it was on account of that, having then put our names as we come to the preamble of the Constitution. Look for that preamble and display it to tell you the fraud we are trying to resolve. When we say that the Constitution of Nigeria is a fraud, it is because in the preamble to that Constitution, the Absalam Abubakar and his co-travelers in 1999 claimed that we, the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, put a comma there, put a pause there. That we, the people, means one and only thing. We, the Yoruba, standing in Yoruba land. We, the Ijo, standing on Ijo land. We, the Berom, we, the Tiv, we, the Igbo, we, the Shekiri. That is the only meaning of that we, the people. Because there are some illiterate people who hold PhDs. To say that some of the time they ask us, was Absalam Abubakar and co, not Nigerians, and all of that. So that way the people, against the backdrop of the thing what I've just explained, is the the constituent components of Nigerians armed with their sovereignty, each of them. They are coming to become a federation, union of constitutions, union of sovereignties. And so you come to the second leg of that false claim. It says, having firmly and solemnly resolved to live in unity as indivisible and indissoluble country. Again, coming from the mouth of those constituent components, would they firmly resolve? Would they agree if they were never invited to meet? They were never invited. They were not invited in 1914. They were not invited in 1922. They were not invited in 1946, 54, 1963. It was always a middleman. It was always a middleman. Why has Nigeria refused? The proprietors of the Federation of Nigeria refused to invite the owners of the land that the British Crown conscripted into the Union of Nigeria from the fraud of amalgamation, from the treaties they obtained by deceit from semi-literate kings of the time. That is what we are still suffering from. What they handed over to Ahmadu Bello in 1960 is still sitting where it is, with all the guns and all the powers and rights that were taken. So you come to the third leg of that preamble that then says, do hereby make and give unto ourselves the following constitution. If we go back to the authority line we were talking about, you will then see that it has been alleged by this management team, the government, that we, the owners of the lands that could be countries of their own, have solemnly, that have come in our, first we have to come in our capacity as the owners of the land. That is the reason the National Assembly does not have mandate to make constitution. The mandate of the National Assembly as a part of that management team is limited to lawmaking. Any lawyer who tells you any other thing, tell him that Tony Nadi said he's illiterate and he's dishonest, because we have spoken about it for 25 years, from 1999. Any lawyer in Nigeria who does not understand that the National Assembly is not the body to make constitution for us, that lawyer is dishonest and could be illiterate on the subject. So we come back to that false claim. It is those three false claims that now have to be resolved, because the truth, how do I know that is a lie? You go to decree, first let's even go to 14.2a. Section 14.2a of the Constitution of Nigeria 1999, as bad as it is, that section 14.2a admitted that sovereignty belongs to the people of Nigeria, peoples of Nigeria, from whom government, through this constitution, derives all its powers and authority. I'm quoting now section 14.2a, which is the universal truism on what can happen, because people will ask, how is the constitution of a federation made? The answer is in that section 14.2a that says, sovereignty belongs to the peoples of Nigeria, belongs to the Yoruba in Yoruba land, belongs to the Ijo in Ijo land, belongs to the Igbo in Igbo land, Berom in Berom land, Edo in Edo land, from whom government, through this constitution, derives all its powers and authority. Therefore, unless the peoples of Nigeria, in their capacities as the owners of their lands, in keeping with their sovereignty and their right to self-determination, make a document by sitting down, they identify themselves in their lands, they sit down and agree, then they write their agreement in what we then call constitution. And by the time they are going to that meeting, the only way to identify themselves as the ones who are going to federate was exactly what happened between 1954 and 1959, before the independence. The Yoruba made out their constitution as a country that was now going to negotiate with other countries. The Eastern region made out their constitution. The Northern region made their own in 1959, 57 to 59. The three of them made out their constitutions and then went to Lancaster House to unionize, to say, yes, we're going to create, instead of going off as separate countries, we're going to now create, units of, we're going to create a union office. That's the federal government. They mandated that, they donated the powers that became the responsibility and power of that federal government, that union office. They were the ones who listed what that union office would be doing for them. They were the ones who decided to be contributing 15% of their revenue to maintain that federal government and finance the limited responsibilities they allotted to that federal government. That was the period Awolowo could decide what to do with education, what to do with cocoa to make money, what to do with all the infrastructure he built, stadium, TV. That was the period Emma Okpara was teaching the rest of the developing world what an economy is. Oji River Power Plant was built that powered Eastern Nigeria all the way to Port Harcourt and Calabar, stably, on coal. And you saw how countries of the world had to come to copy what they were doing. In the north, whatever Awolowo and Emma Okpara did, Ahmadu Bello was struggling to do. He had his groundnut pyramids, and they had their priorities, and they built a university when others started building university. So everybody was doing what they could best do with what they had in their sovereignty. And it was always, you couldn't take any proposition to pass as law to the federal parliament of the time if the regional parliaments are not approved of it. So you don't go and sit in Abuja, if it was to be Abuja, the capital, and begin to introduce bills of what to do. Look at the kind of madness that just happened. We have a problem we need to resolve. And people sit in Abuja and say it is by going back to old national anthem. What happened to meeting to resolve the differences that have cost us a war, cost us millions of lives, made us poverty capital of this world? Under a constitution that guarantees everything we lament, the killings going on, the corruption that eats everything, the infrastructure that is zero, the election that we have seen so many times that our vote never counts. It is that constitution that is responsible for everything. So we go from knowing now that it is the constituent components, the peoples of Nigeria, in ownership and control of their sovereignty, make out a federation by discussion in the manner we have seen. And so what is our proof that that claim did not happen? Those three claims that we, the people, solemnly resolved to live together and wrote constitution. You go to the decree number 24 of 1999, by which Absalom Abaka smuggled that constitution into being. Decree number 24 of 1999 has only 2 sections. In subsection 1, subsection 3 of that section 1, it gave an instruction for the federal printer of the federal government, the press, the government press, they call it, not to tell the story of how the constitution was made, because that decree number 24 told the story. Absalom Abaka told the story of how he formed the committee, the Nikitobi committee, that went up and down wherever they choose to go to consult with whoever they chose to consult with. And they came back to the Supreme Council, Military Council, to say that most people wanted a return to 1979. We already had the story of 79 in how the Constituent Assembly was given something to rubber stamp. And the work they did on it, Obasanjo, on the 21st of September in 1978, introduced 17 amendments that toppled everything the Constituent Assembly did, and then put our signature to it to say it came from our people. It came from representation of our people. The question of who can make constitution, they nominated their friends. They nominated the willing tools from everywhere, the people they could control, to come and discuss constitution. What should have happened in 1977 if they wanted to make a constitution was to invite the Yoruba, the Ogoni, all of the owners of the lands to organize by election or selection, whatever, mandated with constituent powers, to come and discuss how to federate with other people. There is no other way. If you sit in Abuja and nominate, even if you nominate 5,000 people, 2 from every village, it still does not become the meeting with constituent powers. It is only when Yoruba sit in Yoruba land and mandate people, they give constituent power to go and negotiate with those who have also done the same thing in their home, to decide two questions, whether they want to be in union or they don't want to be. And if they want to be, they then spell out the terms. All of what is contained in the Constitution, whether it is 50 states or 30 states or 4 regions, it is at that point of discussion that they will agree on it. All of what is on the exclusive list, it is at that point that they will agree on it. All of the provisions that protect the citizen in chapter 2, it is at that point they insert everything. If they are not invited to any meeting and people who are seeking to conquer them now does everything, how does it become their constitution? That is the problem we have to solve. And that was why Nina set up just so that you don't miss track of what we're saying. That decree number 24 is evidence that we, the people of Nigeria, never met, never agreed, never wrote any constitution. And so, as part of what we are doing to solve this problem, in 2007, we went to court after Pronaco, which was the meeting of the owners of the sovereignties. For the first time, Obasanjo quarreled, of course, we ignored him and carried on. And then we had an outcome that encouraged us to go to court to say that this constitution is a fraud. It cannot remain the basis of union. It cannot remain the basis of democracy. And what is democracy? Government of the people, by the people, for the people. If you don't settle the foundation, bring the second, the graphic on the polity, the politics, and the policy, so that we can see why what we call democracy in Nigeria cannot be called democracy. There are three, like a tree with root structure, the trunk and the foliage from which you get the leaf. The Constitution is the polity. Oh, don't overheat the polity. You set up a fraud. You seize my land and all my assets. Ijaw is crying over their oil. Yoruba is crying over their port in Lagos. The Middle Belt is crying over the fact that they cannot touch gun to defend themselves from Fulani that is killing them. So it is in the Constitution that all those things were rigged. The foundation of the country is the Constitution. That's what you call the polity. It is that polity, that the Constitution that defines the politics, like the pillars from the foundation. And then it is from the politics you now see the policies of whether we are doing well or we're not doing well, or what economically, socially, whatever it is. The problem Nigeria has had is that we are building on a fraudulent, a non-existent constitution, and therefore our politics have been like, in shambles. And then the policies have been this one that has brought us to being the global capital of poverty. Now, the problem that has arisen is that the many years of this atrocity has brought us to where people are now more eager to leave the union. There are agitations all over the place. Biafran flags are flying on one side, Odua flag flying on the other. You saw the other day they invaded the government quarters in Ibadan, trying to take over their Yoruba land, to move away from the union of death that Nigeria has become for them. It's not different from the Middle Belt, where people have been slaughtered in the numbers we have seen. And so what NINAS and all the organizations involved did was to set up a 20-year plan from that 1999 to call a meeting of the owners of Nigeria and to get them to agree on what they want to do, because their sovereignty is inalienable. Their right to self-determination is inalienable. And we're not talking conjecture here. We are talking from instruments that came from the UN since 2007, which we directly participated in bringing about. Thank goodness Soyinka is still alive. Kofi Annan is gone. But what you see here is the 20-year plan by which we went step by step to organize so that it doesn't become Somalia. How we were going to get to where we form a consensus against these invaders that came from all over the Sahel. A consensus against the constitution they imposed, because they were the ones that imposed this constitution, just like the Boers in South Africa imposed the apartheid constitution that took the lands and the rights of the blacks in South Africa. And so we have painstakingly executed that plan. And that was what brought us to the December 16, 2020 constitutional force majeure. That is the enforcement of the sovereign will of the peoples of Nigeria. And in doing so, we do not owe any type of explanation to anybody who pretends to be in government house under a constitution that is a forgery. It is that forgery that enabled them sell 3 million barrels of crude oil every day, sharing the money. You see how they are sharing it. Everything they are doing is mandated by that constitution. Let us run very quickly because we now know how the constitution is made for a federation. We now know that it's the owners of the sovereignty standing on their land and meeting with one another, not the government that can make constitution. We now know that the provisions they put in the place can decide everything. Let us run very quickly through those things that brought us to the misery we are living in. The first thing is the preamble we have already seen. That preamble is the reason our land is occupied by Nigeria today, not by our will. And they've refused. After 114 years, they have refused to allow the owners to hold a meeting to meet among themselves and decide for themselves whether they want to be in union and how they're going to be in that union. That's the first complaint. So no matter what anybody is saying about constitution, that has to be fixed or not fixed. The complaint of those who are flying flags, the complaint of those whose life have been ruined is that we have not agreed to be in this union, contrary to the claim in the preamble of that constitution that we agreed. That's the first, in fact, that's 70% of the whole problem. Unless you solve that, you are not going nowhere. I'm not interested in whatever else you want to change in the document you impose on me. Let us accept that we have not met, we have not agreed. Let us go and sit down and agree. And if we can't sit down and agree, as at now, the fact that we have shown that that preamble and that constitution anchored on it is a forgery, is a fraud. The union that is defined by it, the union that is anchored on it is dead and gone. That constitution is gone. The union of 36 states, the amalgamation of 1999 is dead with it. And because the sovereignty is inalienable to the constituent components of Nigeria, that was why it took us 25 years to go slowly, so that nobody is in a position to fire at anybody or levy any war against anybody. The owners of the land have decided that they will dissolve this union and go with their portions to become either countries of their own or enter into another meeting that will not accommodate those who owe it a duty of faith. In the map you see, people who embrace Sharia owe it a duty of faith to kill you and I. We will not be in union with people who owe it a duty to their God to kill us. Those same people are feudalists. They embrace feudalism. In their worldview, all men are not born equal. And therefore, they are born to rule you. That was what consumed Abiola. That was what consumed Ironsi. That was what almost consumed Jonathan. They had to chase him out of the place. He wasn't one of those who could govern them. And they told us to our faces that only them can govern. Only them own your land. That is why you cannot dig in your ground and take the gold there. You can't take the oil you find. You can't work your pot. They have taken your sovereignty away from you and all your economic assets. They have taken the exclusive control of all the guns in the land on that exclusive list. So let's go back so that we can run through the document very quickly. In that preamble, the complaint is that we have not agreed to be in union. I'm not interested in any other discussion until we settle that. If we're not settling that, we will do whatever it takes to terminate the union. Anybody who will cling onto this constitution and say that constitution say, or that Nigeria is the one to decide for me in Port Harcourt, I tell you, whatever I find to do to that person, I will do. And even if it's my twin brother, he got to join political party, PDP, APC, Labour Party, ABGA, all of them swear to defend and they subscribe to that constitution that is the guarantee for the evil that has been happening to us since 1914. That's the current package. That's the current instrument occupying our land like apartheid. And so all the political parties in Nigeria subscribe to that constitution. That's why they go to elections under it. And so whatever is happening to us, it is not necessarily the children of Uthman Danfodio or the descendants of Ahmadu Bello that are doing it to us. It is our own kinsmen that swear to defend and uphold that constitution, that go to election under that constitution, whether they're PDP or APC. When this matter will snap, And if our people are to be killed again in the manner that the Fulani is planning to do, armed with that constitution that gives them exclusive control, I tell you, my first line of targets, the people I will pursue to no end, are the ones from our territories who swear to defend and uphold this constitution, who go to elections under it, whether they are PDP or Labour Party or ABGA or APC, any one of them who swear, who is prepared to swear, who is prepared to contest election under this constitution is the number one enemy, ahead of any Fulani man, ahead of any other person, any armed robber or kidnapper. Having said that, we come back, we've dealt with the preamble. Section 1 is where the federation is defined as the 36 states. What are these 36 states? The same thing as Berlin Conference that sat in Germany and partitioned Africa. That is how these 36 states came. Nobody discussed with the owners of the land where they wanted, how they wanted to federate. So you come from that 36 state structure and 714 local government areas. What does it do to me? How does it injure me? Of course, the one of preamble, you know the injury that is causing, that we are now in a union of master and servant against our will, our land taken, and people pointing guns at us. The one of 36 states, we have now become a permanent political minority. No matter how we manage, no matter how we quarrel, we are that minority because one region out of 4 and the Federal Capital Territory has become 19 states. They brought 704 local government areas in which Kano has 44 portions. Jigawa was carved out of Kano. It has 27 local government areas. Bayelsa, from where the money has to be taken every month to share in Abuja, has only 8 local government areas. Jonathan became president. He could not add one alphabet or subtract from the constitution. Therefore, for everything that has to be shared, Kano will get 44 portions. Jigawa, that was part of Kano until recent, get 27 portions. Between the two of them, 71 portions. But Bayelsa from, and they don't contribute a dime into that money that has to be shared. As it is with that, so it is with every other thing. 3 senators per state. So they have a standing majority. It is what the audio of they described as a veto. What the British left behind for Ahmadu Bello is still in place. The Fulani, the Caliphate, has a veto over the rest of us in the union agreement, in the union arrangement, which the constitution is supposed to be. And so that 36 state structure and the 704 local government areas that compound it, bringing up to 812 governments that we must finance every year, every month, from money that they do not contribute anything to. Whether no matter who is president, they take 72% of everything that is on the table to be shared, and they don't contribute even 1% of it. That is what we are living with. And there's no money. When you have to finance, when we had only 5 governments, 1 federal government and 4 regional governments, there was money to provide facilities for the citizens. School, healthcare, housing, everything was going on. But when they now turned it into unitarism and created this number of centers, states, with governors living large, like heads of state, with even council chairmen living large, like so every month they gather 1.something trillion. The owners of that money cannot find money to feed. They cannot find money to send their children to school. They cannot find money to treat themselves when they fall ill. And people sit in Abuja holding on to this constitution as basis of union so that they can share trillions of blood money. My anger is not with the ones that impose it on us. My anger is with the ones who from our part swear to defend and uphold this fraud every day. We are shouting the way we're shouting now because it will soon come to be resolved. They may not see people like me. When those who are being tormented, those who are running away from Nigeria, young people, whose lives have been wrecked and ruined. But you saw what happened to NSAS in Lagos. Young people thought they could protest something. The same people turned the fire on them. And then the next day, they came out to call them out to come and do election. And they say it's obedient movement. Neither Peter Obi, nor Patu Tommy, nor any of the church leaders that were mobilizing people to go to get PVC told them that the constitution by which the winner will govern them already rendered them slaves in their homeland. And that is what we say must come to an end. We go beyond 36 states. We then come to section 6, subsection 6, C, and D. Section 6, subsection, the impunity you see in Nigeria has a constitutional foundation. When you see impunity, it is because of immunity that we have in place. Section 6, subsection 6D, that says that everything that was done in the name of government from the 15th of January in 1966 to the 29th of May in 1999, 33 years, the jurisdiction of the court was removed from inquiring into them. That means all of those who shared Nigeria among themselves, the genocide generals of the class of 66 that shared Nigeria as oil block, port concession among themselves, everything that belongs to all of us were shared between them in that period of 33 years. Go and find out the title deed behind Otafam of Obasanjo. Go and find out the title deed behind all of what the rest of them in that class has, all of what they have across Nigeria. Go and find out how One Free Export Zone got into the hands of General Shehu Yaradua, who then handed it over to Atiku Abubakar, his protege. So they took everything from everybody across the length and breadth of Nigeria. They are still sitting on it. They have more money than Nigeria can afford today because they've been accumulating it since they took it. And where we are now is that that section, this constitution that says the killing they did, it was in that period, of course, they did their coups and killed all of who they killed, Ironsi, the Igbos, the Biafra War, and all of what they did since after 1970, the indigenization decrees, and all of what they did to further sell the assets of the people to themselves. Go and find out how we came about Transcorp. Find out what Obasanjo's role in it is in it. They took over the electricity facilities, refineries were sold and resold among themselves, all of that. So in all of what they did in that period, nobody can question them. Even as the owners of the ones who were killed, the ones whose economic assets, the Niger Delta is still crying over the oil and gas assets that were taken by decree. Nobody can recover those things except this constitution goes down. We come from that to section 6, such as on 6D, 6C. That it was D I was talking about. Subsection 6C is where the government of Nigeria absorbed itself of responsibility towards the citizen. The whole of chapter 2 contains all the good things of life. And so I'm explaining the specifics of what is tormenting the citizen in the villages where they are. The electricity they don't have, the infrastructure they don't have, everything that is happening to them, the security they don't have. And so, first to say, the government of Nigeria, under that section 6, subsection 6C, does not owe the citizens of Nigeria any kind of obligation for school, for hospital, for security, for welfare. All those lawyers that used to jump to TV to say, oh, government has not done well. They owe their first duty is your security and your welfare, and they'll be occupying the airways in black and white. Inside that constitution, the government does not owe you anything. If your governor or the government at the center does anything for you, that is why they use more money than they spent on you to advertise what they are doing. And you see people beating drums following them because they actually do not owe you any obligation. And when you go from that to the appropriation provisions, sections 1, section 82, 81 and 82 for the president, that give the president the spare key to the treasury. And then section 308, that gives him immunity. You come to the governors, section 121 and 122, give them the spare key to the treasury. Section 308, give them immunity. So they don't owe you any obligation under section 6, section 6C. They have the spare key to the treasury. The appropriation provisions, the way they are written, the president only needs to put figures he likes, and then he's in a position to take half of all the figures he put. That's why they use Ghana Must Go to do what they do, to put figures, so that in the year that follows, they can take all the money in the treasury without reference to anybody. And then you can't question them in all the time they're in office. That is that one. Let's not waste time on section 10 that says there shall be no religion, the government of the federation or that of a state shall not adopt any state religion. That is the shortest section in the Constitution. But look at these 12 states. 12 contiguous states simultaneously passed Sharia in year 2000. Their governors signed and they began to implement, they formed Hizbah and began to implement it. Going by that section 10 of the Constitution that said that expressly forbids adoption of state religion. Have these 12 states not seceded from the secular union of Nigeria? Because leading to independence, at the same time we adopted federation as a model. We also adopted secularity. Ahmadu Bello wanted Sharia in the northern region. J.S. Tucker and the people from Middle Belt said no. Willings Commission settled it. They removed Sharia and allowed what they call penal code, so that those who are not Muslims can operate in the north. From that point in year 2000, that these 12 states simultaneously adopted Sharia. They have seceded from a secular union. What they are doing now is to invade us because we have challenged the constitution by which they will have held us down permanently. They now want to conquer us as basis of keeping the Nigeria. They are telling the outside world that Nigeria is an Islamic country. You saw the one that the interim president in Nigeria hosting OIC and all kinds of things, pretending Nigeria to become an Islamic country. We have no Nigeria anywhere if it is under this constitution that we're making that claim. Let people know that. So we say the appropriation provisions create and guarantee corruption that we see, guarantee the impunity we see. Then we come to the mother of all evils, the exclusive list. It is that exclusive list that takes away the arms and ammunition. No governor can issue one rifle under this constitution to anybody to organize security. Tell me how you're going to organize your security if you cannot touch gun. Tell me how you're going to enforce the laws you make as a state if you're a federating unit and you cannot enforce the laws in your own small jurisdiction without waiting for the one who are opposed to you to come from Abuja to enforce it for you. In a federation, it should not be so. You see them now trying to say they want to amend a constitution to make a state police. State police. That state police, Ninas is completely opposed to any piecemeal amendment, including for state police. Why do we say so? You go and do state police. You've not discussed how we came to the states, but people hang on to it to say, oh, it's our state. I'm an Ambrarian, I'm Imolite, I'm Bayelsan, I'm River, just nonsense talk. You were called names by people who have divided you into manageable compartments without reference to you. And then you say you want state police. Okay, they give you. Where will you find the money to finance a police service when you cannot pay your civil servants the little salary they require now? You are offering them 30,000 and 40,000. You are not even yet paying it. But you can take 50 million, 60 million, 100 million with 200 million constituencies, each of you buy vehicles for 160 million. But you are discussing a salary of whatever, that something that doesn't come to anything at all for the people who are doing the work. And so from that arms and ammunition, if the states go and get their police now, and their economic assets are still sitting in that exclusive list, where would they find the money to finance a police service? What you get from it is that the governor will be more than happy. He's already getting humongous allocations every month. He's more than happy to just get over, to get police to begin to torment his political opponents. And so it is in that setting that you are just going to waste everybody's, you are going to worsen the matter tremendously if state police. That was why the IG said, let them not talk about it, how much more starting it. As it is no security will improve in Nigeria except this constitution goes down and we go to discuss how we can provide security in a federation. The units have to be in charge of how to organize their security with guns in their hands, because it is guns that Fulani use as they come in to kill them. From that, you go all the way down to the election that they have a centralized command over. The economic assets that are taken from everybody are all on that exclusive list. The electricity we don't have, that exclusive list. The refinery that is not operating doing anything for us, and now they stand under that exclusivity and give Dangote the exclusive right to do refinery for all of us. What an insult! You seize my oil and gas, you now give it to Dangote, You got a Mefele and the other lunatics to go to the treasury, take how many $1 billion, hand over to Dangote's private business to come and refine petroleum for me? That is madness. That project is not our project. It is the Caliphate project. And there are 1967 allies, including the present president. That entire arrangement is sitting on the fraud that we are fighting to collapse. We will do whatever it takes to collapse that Nigeria that is sitting on this fraud, that is sitting on my sovereignty, that is pointing guns at me everywhere I turn, that makes life impossible for me, that makes electricity impossible for me, that makes it impossible for me to tar my road, even if I have the money, because it's called federal road. That makes it impossible for me to organize my ports, because it is now federal asset. All these things done by decree. So we have gone from the beginning of the Constitution to the end. And to say that what we must do now to rescue ourselves from this madness that has lasted 114 years already is what Ninas set out by way of that constitutional force majeure after 20 years of hard work at home and abroad. Please bring that 5-step, bring the graphic in blue. What Ninas did was to organize an alliance of all of those who are suffering this torment. And we put up a 5-step, movement to going from where we are now to where we need to be. We created yes, I see it now. What you see here is we created the consensus at the base, the consensus against that constitution. We launched out an enforcement mechanism in the second stage. That was in 2020, the force majeure. Where we are now to enter the third step of transition, during which we'll sort out this matter, is where we are. We have completed stage 1 and stage 2. If the people listening to us in this meeting will understand what needs to be done, just to say that they cannot proceed to any further election under this constitution, that there must be transition for union reconstruction now. And that if we are not willing to do even that the union is at an end, because in the remedy that is available to me now under this UN instrument, I want you to take a close look. I'm not telling you conjecture. I'm telling you what has been done. That is what we have done across the last 20 years. The document you see in my hand here, United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, it was under this document that Scotland went to referendum the other day. It was under this instrument that 5 countries have become free since we got that document out from the UN. And we do our sovereignty resides with us. That is, our land and our people can be by this instrument. If you only need to be a distinct nationality in your ancestral space in order to be allowed to live alone by yourself in peace in that space. If anybody wants to be in union with you, it doesn't matter how the union began in 1914. This instrument that came in 2007 says that you are entitled to be there by yourself, and if anybody wants to unionize with you, it has to be by your agreement. If you don't agree, the person has to dress back. That's where we are. That's the right we have now to exercise. And that's why we are insisting that those who are operating Nigeria under this fraud of 1999 must now come down from their high horse. We are not begging them at all. We don't even have to meet with them. The owners of the sovereignty, according to the map that we have made out of the delineations, Yoruba has their charter as we speak with you. In the lower Niger, please bring that map. All the nationalities are entitled to their self-determination. Their land is their land. They don't need to live with anybody. But in order to avoid making up 300 countries, we have also gotten to the nationality to sit down among themselves, and they have charters. No, the one starting with this one. What you see here, let's even start with this one before we go to the further divisions. What you see in green is the ones that have embraced Sharia and gone their way. What you see in blue is the Yoruba, including the ones of Kogi and Kwara in Yoruba bloc, Yoruba land. That is the group entitled to this self-determination that this instrument offers them. And there's nothing standing between them and exercising that self-determination today, other than this fraud, which was defeated. And so the one in brown is, the one in purple is the middle belt. The thief, the Berom, all the people being slaughtered from Benue to Southern Kaduna to Jos and everywhere in between. That is the one in purple. They are part of this alliance, like you can see in the Nina's map that you are seeing all the while. There are constitutions behind all of these three you see. And the alliance of Nina's is Nigeria minus the ones that have succeeded to do Sharia. If you go back to the lower Niger, so that people can understand that nobody is coming to invade the other, go back to that lower Niger map of 1885. This portion in brown is the former Midwestern region and Eastern region put together. What you see here is the map of 1885 that predated 1914. You see the Igbo at the center. You see the Ijo. You may have to bring the other one. Bring the one in color. Now, the portion in yellow is the Ijo territory, contiguous, covering Bayelsa, Rivers, Ondo, all the way to Akwa Ibom, and all of the portions that go into Edo and Delta. That is Ijo in yellow there. The one in brown is what became Akwa Ibom, the groups Anang and all of them. The one in green is the Igbo across the Niger Delta, across the Niger, that's Delta State. The ones in Rivers, you could see all the way heading into Bonny. Today they are called River State, they are called Delta State, they are called Edo State. Ibanke is Ibaki. It's now in Edo State. You can see the portion that goes into the other lighter yellow, lighter green, that is Edo. So this map you see here is the ethno-linguistic map of the lower Niger. That is the people as they organize themselves according to their ethnicity before the British lumped them together with the rest of them. And so as we speak, from the solemn assembly we had in Port Harcourt in 2015, these 6 blocks you see, of course, the Ishekiri, the Isoko, the Ogoni, all of them fit into one part or the other. And by their own volition, they have been discussing with their brethren on how to make out a constitution that will give them what Nigeria refused to give to them, the right to self-determination. Their land belongs to them, their assets belong to them, everything that they want to have and make for themselves in their space belong to them under this UN instrument. So the charter that will become constitution, federating constitution for them, has already been done. Only remain, that is in process, only remains to be ratified by further open discussions for those who are not involved from the time it was started. As it is for this one, so it is for the middle belt, the thief, the Berom, the Skataf, the Idoma, and all of them. They have their charter as I speak with you, with a map that spells out their boundaries, their territories in that entire. So Yoruba is one language. These ones that are more than one language have done their. These are the blocks that will then come to any discussion that will become constitution for Nigeria. If Nigeria does not, if those who sit in Abuja and the state capitals pointing guns at all of us, if they do not come down from their high horse to embrace the transition to discuss this matter, I tell you, under this instrument of the UN, in the face of the constitution that is a fraud, the union will be dissolved without any meeting. And nobody is going to be able to fire one shot at anybody because nobody will come from any of these 3 blocks on account of the alliance we have built to go to fire, unlike what happened in 1967, where everybody ganged up and it became a let's go and beat down the Igbo. We have gone past all of that. Now, what exactly do we have to do right now? That 5-point proposition of Nina's, this is where I'll be landing now and rounding up. The 5-point proposition of Nina's is to say to all of us must now join in saying that Nina's is right. Our union is distressed because the constitution that brought us together have been toppled and replaced by the brigandage of those who are now holding us hostage and trying to kill us off to take our land. That's what Yoruba is saying now by the Yoruba nation you see. That's what the Joyce been saying in the agitation for resource control you saw. That's what the Biafra movement, the Biafra campaign has been all about in the Biafra flag you saw. And so all of us must now must join in saying, the 5 points at the point 1 says that there must be an acknowledgement of this union dispute that we declared since 2020 by way of that force majeure. Acknowledgement. What does that mean? That all the agitations in the land, all the misery in the land is flowing from the inverted constitutional arrangement we put in place by Brigand Day. Once that acknowledgement is made, we come to item 2 that says a commitment. It is the government of Nigeria that the peoples of Nigeria are now the owners of the enterprise called Nigeria, are the ones insisting that those who are in government house today must now come to acknowledge that there is a dispute around the union, that dispute had to be resolved by the complete decommissioning of that constitution. That's the number 2 of that. That 5-point demand is actually one transitioning proposition for union reconstruction. A single transitioning proposition for union reconstruction. Why we broke it down into 5 parts is to ascertain to everybody's seeing what has to be, what is wrong, what has to be done, who will do it, when it will be done, and how. There's no other proposition. Those talking about 2014, if you ask them on which day would this thing be done, no idea. Who will do what? They point to National Assembly that has no jurisdiction on the matter. When can it now be done? No idea. We'll go and convince National Assembly. All kinds of confused thoughts. And so, item 1, the government of Nigeria must now accept that there's a disputed constitutional arrangement and the dispute has been formally declared. And that constitution must be decommissioned wholesale. That's item 2. Item 3 is that no further national elections. We're only demanding a commitment right now. We have had the first 2. The third one is that no further national elections will happen under the 1999 Constitution. Just like South Africa did to get itself out of apartheid in 1990, after 80 years from 1910. It took Mandela, Oliver Tambo, Governor Mbeki, Winnie Mandela, Walter Sisulu, and the rest of them doing exactly the kind of thing we're doing now to topple the apartheid constitution, to recover the sovereignty of the blacks and their land. And the pressure that everybody now joined in mounting was what made Frederick de Klerk to make the announcement he made in 1990 to say that this apartheid constitution cannot carry us any further. We must now go to a meeting, a transition in which the owners of the land will be on the table to decide how. When we finish, we go to referendum and then go to election. It's that thing that South Africa did in 1990 is the last chance Nigeria has now to rescue anything from the failed Lugadian experiment of 1914. More than 75–80% of people you call Nigerians have long departed from your Nigeria, defined by this constitution of death. And so we come to item 4. Item 3 is the commitment that no further elections will happen under this constitution. Why do we say so? We've been discussing this matter since January of 1967. Since we went to Aburi, was it not what we went to go to discuss in Aburi? How we live together in peace in this union? We came back from Aburi. Yakubu Gowon and his civil servants, aided by the Caliphate of Murtala Muhammad, abandoned the outcome of Aburi and began to kill 3.5 million people, starving 2 million children to death. I was born in the midst of, I wasn't yet born. For young people listening to this presentation, I was not yet born on the day of the first coup. I was not yet born on the day of the second coup. I was born in the middle of the killings that followed the second coup. At the end of the killings in 1970, I was only 3 years old. So let young people not say that these things happened when we were not born. But how come I'm the one explaining to those who went to Lancaster House, including Enoch? How come we were the ones showing them what happened in 1914, what happened in 1858, what happened all the way to where it became constitution across those many years. So I'm just informing us that we have now to say no further, that will be what we have to insist on, that no further national elections will be tolerated. We've tolerated 5, in fact 6, since 1999. Has our life improved in any form? Has it not degenerated enough? And it is that constitution that is the guarantee that it will degenerate much further. So the church leaders in Nigeria that go to canvass for PVC, for people to go and vote, the political parties in Nigeria that lure people into election under this constitution that tie us down as slaves to the Fulani, that endanger us to be killed and our lands taken. That is that constitution and the people who are prepared to govern by it, to contest the election under it. Our task now is to insist that we cannot proceed to any further national elections under this constitution. This is 2024. The next election they are trying to get us to is in 2027. The Fulani have not slowed down in the killings they are doing to try to conquer us. If they overrun us before that 2027, it will be because of our own foolishness. Now to item 4, which is the high point of everything. It is in that item 4 that we demand that there will be a 2-stage procedure by which this matter will be resolved. In the first stage, we must now identify those we the people. This 5-point proposition are meant to address those 3 things I showed you at that preamble. We must now, in that item 4, identify who the we the people are that are going to federate. Yoruba on Yoruba land, Ijo in Ijo land, Tiv in Tiv land, Edo in Edo land, Igbo in Igbo land. We have to identify them in that capacity as the owners of the land that now wish to federate. In the second layer, they will come with their charters, which they've already made that I can report to you. You may not know. They will come with their charters in the second layer to do the kind of thing they did in Lancaster House in 1959, to say Yoruba country that could go away today in 2024. Now want to discuss with the lower Nile, the eastern side, and the middle belt. If the people doing Sharia, the Hausa, for your information, for the information of this audience, the Hausa that is now telling Fulani to dress back from their land, I tell you, Ninas admitted them into observer status in 2020, into this. They are indigenous people. Uthman Danfodio and his fellow marauders overran them, have been sitting on their land, presenting themselves as Hausa Fulani. There's no Hausa Fulani. Hausa owns Hausa land, like Ijo owns Ijo land. Yoruba owns Yoruba land. And under this same instrument of the UN, under this same constitution that have been defeated, the Hausa is entitled, and all the other nationalities in that yellow belt, all the way to Kanuri, they're entitled to their land. Nigeria, defined by this constitution, is dead and gone. And so we are dealing with this to let you know that nobody can mobilize anybody to go and stand the way of any other person who wants to live now. Hausa will not participate in shooting anybody anywhere if the quarrel is that Nigeria is not working, because they're also in that, so that item 4, your sovereignty that was taken since 1914, the only opportunity you have in this lifetime is to collapse this 1999 constitution before it's too late. So that under that item 4, in that 2-stage procedure, you will be identified as the owner of your land. You will now go and discuss with the other people in the second layer. That was what Bola Ige was saying when he said that Nigeria must now ask those who are trapped here whether they want to continue to federate. And if they say yes, it is only by a referendum that yes can be said, that they will then go to define the terms by themselves, not the one Murtala, the butcher of Asaba, Murtala Mohammed, defined for us. That's what we're still living in. This constitution you have here was dictated by that butcher of Asaba, Murtala Mohammed. Obasanjo, the head slave, helped them to process it in 1979. They brought him from prison in 1999 to come to reinforce it. And he began to fight the people who were trying to solve the problem. He went on national TV to say we were committing treason if we were to call a meeting of the owners of Nigeria. And so that is item 4. That is where your land, that is where your sovereignty is hiding. If we insist today, item 5 is just the announcement that will say, item 1, 2, 3, 4 from the mouth of the federal clerk of today. Whoever is presiding over Nigeria, in that item 5, must announce a time-bound transition for the reconfiguration of the union, according to those items 1, 2, 3, 4. That announcement only has to say, we now accept that this constitution is the problem, is what has brought Nigeria to this catastrophe we live in. That constitution has to be decommissioned wholesale. That will not go to another election under this constitution, including 2027. That it will be a two-stage procedure in which the owners of the sovereignty will, in the first layer, do what they have to do to agree among themselves, and come in the second layer to federate with other people. When we were campaigning to stop the election of 2023, and our people refused to listen to us, it was because we wanted to, we were inviting our people to reject further national elections, because the winner of any election will swear to defend and uphold the constitution that makes you slave. If you go to that election that they're advertising under this constitution, you are the one now voting, you are the one now reinforcing your enslavement. You have reinforced it in 1999, in 2003, in 2011, in 2015, in 2019, in 2023. Has your life improved? Why, with all the education we have, can't we slow down and stop in our stupidity to say we cannot proceed to another election under the constitution that guarantees our damnation? And so the strategy that Ninas had in mind, which we can now enforce, is this domino 2 you see here. The first pillar is election. The union of debt is at the extreme left. The constitution that creates that union of debt is at the middle. The election that renews the life of that constitution every 4 years is the one we have to now tackle. That's the one we can touch. That's the one we can insist on. That's the one we can do by ourselves without waiting for government. To tell the political parties that they will not be allowed to drag us to another election under this constitution. And the time to tell them that is now. So what Ninas is inviting the organizers, the conveners, and all of those who may listen to this presentation to do right now in May of 2024 is to say that Nigeria must now go to transition for union reconfiguration according to the 5-point proposition of Ninas. All of us are Ninas, Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. Bring the emblem again. Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. Anybody who is being slaughtered by Fulani, whether it's in Ekiti, or it's in Southern Kaduna, or it's in TV land, you are an indigenous nationality. The only people who are not indigenous to Nigeria are the Fulani doing the killings across the length and breadth of Nigeria. Is it rocket science that since God has caused them to make a mistake, to put our signature on the only title deed by which they enter our space, by which they control all the guns, by which they control all our economic assets, this is their title deed. But they put our signature in it. They didn't plan to let us know. It was because God wanted to save us that he caused them to print that decree number 24. I was talking about subsection 1.3 that wow. Sorry, something disrupted the power source. Am I still coming through?
Yes, please.
Yes, I'm done now. What Ninas is inviting all of those who are listening to this at this moment to do is to go out there. All the materials we need are already in place. what needs to be done is for those who are going to wake up all that. We're talking about death of millions of people if the Fulani and their willing tools from amongst us, all of those from us, the south and middle belt of Nigeria, including the South and Middle Belt Elders or Leadership Forum. We built an alliance of the South and Middle Belt to isolate our tormentors, the caliphate, to get down to this, truncating the constitution that empowered them. This Elders Forum decided to use that same alliance. They didn't go with us all the years. We were going from the Tiv to the Berom to the Yoruba to the Jukun. They did not. They were just going from election to election, sharing the benefit of winning the election. Then when we had built this alliance to stop the journey to election and enforce the collapse of that constitution and the recovery of our sovereignty, they now decided to present themselves to the people as their leaders who want to bring a better person to come and lead them as president. If Peter Obi becomes president, just like Tinubu is president today, this constitution remains in place. The 36 states will remain in place. That preamble remains in place. The 68 items of exclusive list remains in place. The provisions that create corruption and guarantee immunity for the beneficiaries of corruption will remain in place. The president, like we have seen in that memo and article illustration, the president has no right to add one alphabet or subtract one alphabet from the constitution. And so on what basis will you now suggest that it is leadership or corruption that is the problem? The constitution has shown you the sections that are responsible for the corruption we see. I've shown you that election that is on exclusive list is the reason you get all of what you get from INEC every 4 years. Because it's not you electing who will govern you. It is whoever they impose on you. You saw what happened in Imo State, that the man who came forth in the election was imposed on Imo people. He's still there. You go to the Supreme Court, they do exactly what they did in the one of 2023 presidential election. And so we are not anarchists. Our quarrel is not with the people in government house. For those who may ask, hey, what of anarchy? There's no anarchy anywhere. All of us can insist. If we stand up and do what needs to be done now, to insist that we must go to transition now to solve this union dispute that have been outstanding since 1967. The government is our employee. We are the owners of Nigeria. The nationalities are the owners of the enterprise. The constitution by which their employees, the government, toppled their ownership has been toppled. And so we are back to where everybody has their sovereignty on the table to take away. If you do not take your sovereignty now, Fulani is coming upon you to take that land and kill you off. If because they've not come to your community, you think it's not happening, go and ask those in Southern Kaduna, go and ask those in these several scores of communities that have been overrun in Plateau today. Go and ask those in Benue what is happening in their space. It's coming everywhere. You saw them in Ekiti. You saw them in Ibadan. You saw them in Bayelsa. You saw them in Cross River the other day. They have encircled us. The guns are in their hands. But we're in a position to stop them. Whether it is the corruption we see, whether it's the killings we see, the only thing that can get to all of those things at the same time is that this constitution that enables all those things are taken out. And we only need to say transition now in rejection of that constitution. Except we are lying to ourselves that we reject that constitution of master and servant. If we are serious, we must now step out from our comfort zones to say that we reject this constitution as basis of union. We insist on transition now for union reconfiguration, according to the 5-point proposition of the Nigerian Indigenous Nationalities Alliance for Self-Determination. If we do that, it won't take us more than 3 months to get to where we permanently terminate this enslavement that has lasted for so long, since 1914. We have never been in charge of what happens in our space. I think I'll stop here. Thank you for listening.
Wow. Brethren, may I ask that we all unmute and at your various locations. Let's give Mr. Tony Nandi a wonderful round of applause and a big shout of thanks.
God bless you.
Wow.
Appreciate you, sir.
God bless you for your courage.
And show us the way.
Amen and amen.
God bless you. God will help you.
No man shall make you afraid. The Lord grant you more boldness. The wind of God
Amen. Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Tony Nadi,
yeah.
for that powerful and wonderful presentation. God bless you. Thank you. I can see one hand is up. We shall be willing to take some questions and some contributions, but each person will only be permitted 2 minutes, because by 6 p.m. on the dot, we shall close this meeting. Professor Contain will give us the closing remarks and a short closing prayer at 6 p.m. dot. So whoever wants to ask a question, you can raise the hand, but not more than 2 minutes. I'm going to be the timekeeper. Once it is 2 minutes, I will mute you. Please do not be angry. It's because we do not have all the time. Okay, sir. Barrister Kelani, you may unmute, sir.
Good evening, all. I really want to appreciate Barrister Tony Nadi. I've been following him. We have been talking. I'm glad to also have listened to this presentation. I don't have any question, but just to make a contribution very quickly. The stage where we are now is the stage where we must get the whole nation to see the need not to go for further election. That is the target that we have in mind to achieve. I am pleading with Barrister Tony Nadi to press harder on what he said here, because I wrote it down that these are things he must do, but he has already shown that he has done them, so there is no need for me to be repeating them. Continue to foster growth of similar groups, okay, all over the constituent federating units of Nigeria. And then, like you said, you have gotten them to develop a charter. I was discussing with one of our elders, Afenifere, Ayo, forgotten his man name, Chief Ayo, I can't remember now, but it was this issue of charter. It was this issue of Afenifere leader.
Yeah, Adebanjo.
Adebanjo. I was in his house, and it was this issue of charter that we were talking. So I'm very, very glad that the charters are in place. People say it is unconstitutional or it's a treason to draft your own constitution, but it's not a constitution, it's a charter. And the people must get ready. A time is coming when the whole nation will say, we are stopping, we are not having elections again, we are going to go into a constituent assembly, and we are going to decide how we want to federate. It is happening already. But just to intensify what you are doing, sir, let this thing be going around. This your enlightenment talks and so on. Don't stop. And I see that there are many materials you are putting on the NINA's website. Please continue to put them and update them, like we are updating after the 2023 election. So I just want to encourage you on all those steps, and please just continue. Thank you so much. My time is up.
Thank you, sir. God bless you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Very quickly. What Ninas is saying, we cannot all sit back in our homes and hope that there's a Ninas somewhere doing it. If Yoruba people want their land back from Fulani conquest, Yoruba must stand in Yoruba land. And that was why we formed the alliance. And do what is it is in writing. The constitutional force majeure has been placed before the global community. You saw when we went to the UN in 2021 that Buhari had to hire people in New York to pretend to be Nigerians. Where are the rest of the Nigerians? All of those who went to election, whether they were Gbado supporters or obedient supporters, All of them are the ones that should stand up now to tell the political parties that they will not go to another election. Shut them down. They are the ones sucking your blood, killing you. All of those ethnic leaders of Afenifera and Ohanese and Middle Belt Peru, what else are you doing? The Labour Congress that is looking for paltry sum. How many of you are working for government to now say if they pay you any amount of money, you are not up to 1% of the country's population? Let us insist on retrieving our sovereignty from the marauders that have hijacked it. And everything we need is already in place. Just take it. Become Ninas in your space. That is all that is required. Nothing more. But if we leave it as if there's a Nina somewhere doing it, that is where they will ignore you. Our numbers will not stop them just by us, where we are now. It is when all of those who are suffering this torment will stand up and say, this is where we stand with Ninas. Transition now. No further national elections. Political parties close shop. Simple. In less than 6 months, we'll be out of this trauma.
Thank you, sir. Brother James Ogbonna, 2 minutes. You keep muting. Your seconds are going. You keep muting yourself.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, sir. Can you hear me? Yes, yes, I'm on mute. All right. Good evening, sir. I want to thank you for this opportunity that we have. I've really learned a lot going back to the history of how this great country was formed. But I have a question. Now, the question has to do with the formation of the Constitution. Now, if there's going to be any constitutional amendment or any reform whatsoever, there's a part of the Constitution that states that 2/3 majority of the states must endorse whatever amendments that will be done to the Constitution. And I ask, why do we need 2/3 of the states to endorse when we already have representatives of each state at the federal level, both House of Reps and Senators? Why do we have to take back whatever laws we want to amend to the states? Again, would that not be double representation? That's number one. Number two, if we are going to have any amendment to the Constitution based on that section that says 2/3 of the states should endorse it, the question now is, how do we now amend the Constitution when we know that it is still the same people who are there that will still sit on the amendment? It means that we are in a very serious situation. Is there no way our Constitution can be amended to give us the people's Constitution such that the lawmakers will not have an input, but it's still the same lawmakers that will still decide whether to...
All right, Brother James, thank you very much. We have heard you. You are still talking of amendment. We have gone past amendment.
Brother James, if you were here during the presentation, you will have heard when we say that the business we have to do is not about amendment at all. The National Assembly we have not made any constitution. The National Assembly's legislative mandate does not extend to making constitution even by amendment. Except we make a constitution, we can then mandate them on what they can amend, and by referendum we ratify whatever they amend. So the problem of Nigeria now is not matter for amendment. The 5-point proposition is to get Nigeria to where we sit down like South. Was it amendment that cured apartheid in South Africa? Why can't we, with the education we have, why can't we read what we have that is on the table for the people who have more knowledge on the subject, that have done the work that needs to be done? We can't even examine what has been placed on the table, yet we are crying that we're dying.
But let's move forward. Let's move forward, sir. Let's move forward, sir. Professor Uye, 2 minutes, sir. You may start, sir.
All right. Greetings, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to suggest the issue of sending this issue of matter to ECOWAS and AU, even if they are not going to treat it. In that kind of situation, it may even mean copying relevant, like all these constituent indigenous people, copying their different part of them and other notable people that are in support of what we are agitating for. Yeah, thank you.
All right, sir.
Very quickly. ECOWAS is in the back pocket of Nigeria, and you can see what has already happened to that Nigeria, where somebody who was willing to do the bidding of France was going to invade the Niger Republic. What we need to do does not require any of all those. The only thing we needed was from the UN Security Council and Trusteeship Council, and we got it a long time ago. Our people should please, in the name of God, put aside whatever they were thinking before and examine what we have on the table. It is in black and white. Read it, that this is A, B, C, D of what we can do today and end this trauma in a matter of weeks and months. Not to be pointing to the sky in conjecture and speculation. What is the purpose of our education? If we cannot examine, this thing has been out in the public space since 2020. Foreign governments have acted on it, interrogated it, sent their diplomats to come to sit down and discuss the aspects of it that concern them, because they have stake in Nigeria for their business or some other thing, security. The US spent 7 months interrogating this proposition. The only people who are not looking at what is written, and we put it in Guardian newspaper, 4 pages. It's all over the internet. It's in our website. Why can't we commit 1 hour to go and read what we have been told, what we are being asked to do, so that we can understand it and ask questions? We have 405 videos, broadcasts, things that show what has been done and what is left to be done. We have over 150 written materials. Any 2 or 3 of them can take you through what you need to know to become the one mobilizing other people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. All right, Brother Ejalo Nibu, your 2 minutes started.
Thank you very much. I want to appreciate our spokesperson. And my suggestion now is this. Let us now break into town hall meetings. All the indigenous nationalities, the Yorubas, the Jebus, the Egbas, the Kanuri, the Efik, the Urobos, let us now break down ourselves, the analysis, into town hall meetings. Whenever we just need to have a town hall meeting, let us get in touch with the secretariat so that they'll be here. That I think is one of the ways out. I'm not convinced that we should continue to show sympathy for people that are complaining of hardship. They created the hardship. Nina told them not to go to 2023 election. So, but then we still will not. Nina is an advocacy group that we will need to embrace. So may God be with us. So that yes, that the town hall meeting.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. It's well taken.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Brother Philip Chima, you raised the hand and you put it down. Are you still willing to talk?
Yes.
You are muted again. You are muted.
Yes, sir. I am willing to talk. I talk Tony Naji, my challenge understanding. He keeps saying it. We have bad eggs amongst us who they keep to, even if we call a town hall meeting like the last speaker says, they are the ones to equip to go and scatter it. He mentioned how do we now get behind our brothers who are traitors, who are the ones they are using to scatter any little effort. That's one. The second one is the ethnic nationalities. From a little bit, I know a lot of them have weapons that of their own, that even if when we say we are calling, they are not loyal to the ethnic group. They are loyal to their masters. How do we solve those problems, sir? Thank you.
Very, very quickly. Very quickly. Yes.
Hello, sir.
Very quickly. If we do what we have been asked to do today, those traitors will pack their baggage and run away before you even come looking for. They dare not come to where the people are gathered to discuss this matter. Not even the government, not DSS, not police, not army. They are committing treason, and we have told them that they are committing treason and that they will be punished except they come down from their high horse to come to discuss with the owners of the sovereignty they hijacked by way of that constitution. And so our own brethren that go to do PDP and Labour Party and APC, if we ask people, the meetings can begin by virtual, like we are holding now. Thousands of people, I see politicians that hold meeting on X, that's on Twitter, and 350,000 people turn up. We can begin with all of those things that were done towards election to mobilize people into going in one direction or the other, can be replicated. Physical town hall meetings, of course, and every one of them, anybody that has any people any group of people they want to address, at even 1 hour notice, 30 minutes notice, Secretariat can assign somebody to support them. The materials are all there. You only need to take one video and play. Give them 20 minutes to discuss it, because those things are self-explanatory. Give the document to those who can read, to read and make flyers and give to the ones who cannot read in their local language. There are people who are already doing that. Just let those who can absorb, who can read and understand, who can view and understand, join in the task. Those are traitors who run away when our people begin to say this is what we want. They can't even come to where you are discussing it, because there will be no Abuja to come to their aid in their own community, because we're not going to Abuja to hold that meeting. Are you suggesting that if you want to hold a meeting or a Zoom meeting or any kind of even physical meeting, that those people come and say you cannot discuss the constitution that is choking you? They dare not. If any one of them tries to do it, the people you are talking about, the people that have arms, we are able to talk about arms now because we have toppled the constitution that forbid people from carrying arms. All of the groups that were carrying arms before 1999 and after, Ninas went to them, Asadi Dokuba and his volunteer post, Ghanaian Adams and his OPC, all of the groups that had arms. We sat down with them, brought them to Pronac to say, put your guns aside. And they listened to us. They did not fire one shot throughout those periods. And we told them, everybody keep what you have until the time comes when those who say they are born to conquer and rule us will come to our space when we have done the first things we need to do. So the guns that are available in the hands of those people we are pointing to, I tell you, they have been they are following this matter much more than you imagine. You saw the other day in Isaac Boro Day celebration last week or so. Listen again to the video of what the Ijaw people said there about the constitution and the need to stop and renegotiate Nigeria before they begin to make their own arrangements. I can tell you that they are in with what we are doing. We only need to mobilize more people of our own people, not those who are opposed to us, to get into what has to be done. And let me also inform us that every Tuesday, Ninas hosts a town hall session on Clubhouse. Please download Clubhouse so that you're able to join every Tuesday. We are addressing people from all over the world, Nigerians who have stakes in this matter, so that even if it's that the only thing you're able to bring your own people to come to listen to before you begin to organize your own, we have every Tuesday in the Nina's Clubhouse. Secretariat can give more information. The phone numbers, please display the phone numbers people can call to make the inquiries about how to join this task. I know that the people, the conveners of this meeting are going to be doing things to reach out to people who want to join the task, the nationalities and all the groups that are complaining about anything in Nigeria. There's no other thing to do to solve this problem than to do these simple things. The work has been completed. It's not like prison compound. What Ninas is doing is a joint jailbreak from the caliphate prison the world calls Nigeria. We have finished the task. The only thing remaining is for those who are locked in that prison to stand up from their cells and march to the gate under the instruction that have been given. But if they refuse, I tell you, many of them will be slaughtered. They refused to listen in 2015, 19, 23. That's why they've been killed. If they listen now, in less than 6 months, they will be completely free of that Nigeria. And they work out their new union. I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Brethren, we have to stop. It is 6 p.m. Already. Our schedule is to stop at 6 p.m. Even if we give 1 more hour, it still will not be enough. there is a lot people will want to talk about. So please, we will apologize. We have to bring the meeting to a close at this time. One of the things that we could do individually is let us begin to mobilize critical groups in the country, like the Nigerian Labour Congress, Trade Union Congress, National Association of Nigerian Students, Nigerian Bar Associations. Those are critical groups that need to start speaking now. They must know what is going on, and they must all flow together in one direction. Thank you. Once again, we want to thank Ninas for conducting this conference for us. We also want to thank Mr. Tony Nadi once again. Thank you. God bless you. We hand over to Professor Contain for rounding up and the closing prayer. God bless you. Prof, over to you.
Thank you very much, sir. As practical step in furtherance of what Pastor Basu has said, to mobilize critical force, I want to suggest, I was going to say this, can we in our little spaces begin to replicate, re-echo what we've heard? On your WhatsApp group, raise questions. You can start a community of 5, a community of 10 in your school. On every platform, begin to create awareness. The more aware people are, the readier they are to respond. So you never can tell where that gets to, just as we've been steered with information we've heard. So take this further. Probably your family platform, you in praying about it, you are informing people. In your village group, say something. You might not have as much time as Barrister Nadi has done. You say something. So everybody become an advocate of what we have heard. We've been praying for the new Nigeria, and God has given us a key to this new Nigeria, shown us where the problem is. This is prayer made easy, because we've seen discernment. Rather than take out one bad leader and bring out a good one, we think a good one who sits on the same bad throne. God is giving us a blueprint. And so let's help this well. Also, please, you probably don't know how to get Clubhouse. You can download it. And I want to request the NINA Secretariat, you can keep us updated through Pastor Bosson. So we will update those whom we are in touch with to begin to join your Tuesday sessions, and then spread this out to others who are not aware. Some of us are becoming aware for the first time. There are Tuesday sessions like this. So if we get these notices, we put it out to everybody. You'll be amazed that somebody who can do something will be coming. So thank you very much. I'm grateful to God that we have the Martin Luther of our season, the Nelson Mandela of our age. It doesn't take a big title. Most of these big movers were apparently ordinary people until later generations wrote a big history about them. So thank you, sir, for you and your team, what you're doing, this great work, the sacrifice you're doing over the years for this new Nigeria. As a prayer house, we pray the Lord preserve you. As a Christian, we believe that you trust the preservation of prayer. But we're saying to ourselves, we've prayed plenty of prayers. This is time to begin to work beyond what the house shall do, that the rest of us will become aware of later on. Please become an advocate, spread this out, get small communities, and begin something. Father, we thank you for the privilege of giving us for one more day at this platform. We ask we shall not be hearers only, but doers, that we shall run with the word you've given us, that it doesn't condemn us. In the name of Jesus, we ask your preservation over our brother with his team, that, Lord, you preserve them, you'll amplify their voices, you'll bring in helpers to this NINA project. And each one of us, God, help us to see what we can do to hasten the birth of this new nation. We command it shall be in our season, in our generation. Thank you, Lord God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. You'd hear more from us if there is to say. So see you 9 o'clock at the prayer platform. God bless you. Praise of our Lord Jesus Christ, the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit, be with us now and forevermore. Amen. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our lives, and we shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Amen. Bless you. Bye-bye. See you 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Amen.